Hey, it's me, Bobbert, and welcome to my retrospective review. In this video, Sonic is going medieval in Sonic and the Black Knight. Is this regame an underrated gem, or another bad Sonic game with a bad gimmick? Let's find out. During this time in 2009, the Sonic the Hedgehog series was sitting rock bottom. Sonic Heroes was mediocre at best. Shadow the Hedgehog was an odd direction in the series despite being a spin-off game. Sonic 06 was a disaster, and Sonic and the Secret Rings didn't help either. Now these are all 3D Sonic games I'm talking about. I'm not counting the 2D Sonic game like the Sonic Adventure series or the Sonic Rush series, which were mostly great. However, the last 3D Sonic game, Sonic Unleashed, gave the fanbase some hope. The boost mechanic, which was new at the time, was finally refreshing. What brought the game down was another gimmick with the Roadhog. It was not focused on speed, but on combat instead. It was slow paced and very repetitive, and another useless gimmick that fans were getting sick of. Sonic and the Black Knight was being developed around the same time as Sonic Unleashed was. There's not many betas, I couldn't find any at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if the sword mechanic in this game was meant for another game. The Railhard gameplay was originally going to be a Rise-Star game, and even though I have no proof that this is also the case in Sonic and the Black Knight, I wouldn't be surprised if this was meant for another Sega game. The story begins with a wizard named Melina being chased down by King Arthur. She makes a summon and causes Sonic the Hedgehog to fall from the sky. Despite Sonic defeating all of the Black Knight's enemy, Melina says Sonic is not strong enough to face on King Arthur himself and retreated. Melina led Sonic to Excalibur, a legendary sword that can talk, and later meet with the Lady of the Lake, played by Amy Rose. To defeat the Black Knight, Sonic needs the sword of King Arthur Knights of the Round Table, which consists of Shadow, Knuckles, and Blaze. They all got unique names, but I'm going to refer to them as Shadow, Knuckles, and Blaze throughout this video. And they need those swords to get rid of King Arthur's immortality and defeat him once and for all. The controls in Sonic and the Black Knight is a bit similar to Sonic and the Secret Rings. They're both on-rail games, but the only difference is that instead of controlling Sonic with the remote, you actually use the control sticks instead, which is much better. The gameplay is focused on Sonic using the sword. Your main and only form of combat is swinging the remote, and if you don't like motion controls in your game, then you're really not going to like this game because that is the only way to attack, and you're going to be doing a lot of that. You can perform combos with multiple swings, which is a bit satisfying when defeating a lot of enemies on the field, but it can become very boring and repetitive quickly. You can still do a homing attack, but instead of defeating your enemies, you just bounce off them. The soul gauge is back, but it's a bit different. Time slows down and Sonic can attack each enemy one by one. When there's no enemy on the field, Sonic can boost. The sword combat doesn't get interesting, and the enemies and level design doesn't really help either. Sonic games, whether it's 2D or 3D games, are usually simple in gameplay. Sega spiced things up with the levels by providing branching pathways, adding gimmicks in the stage, like in Sonic Colors, or introducing new enemies that you need to defeat in a slightly different way. It may not sound innovating or exciting, but it helps keep the game fresh. In Sonic and the Black Knight, almost every enemy can be defeated by the swing of a remote. Your standard Knight's enemies, creatures on the wall, while riding on a vehicle. At best, you have these big enemies with long swords, which you need to use a shield to deflect their attack. It's helpful, but optional. You can still defeat them with a swing of a sword if you want. But this game, in other words, is very repetitive and boring. Just like in Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic and the Black Knight has missions that you need to complete to progress through the story. Some of them are pretty simple, like destroy all the enemies, collect a certain number of rings, etc. If I had to compare Secret Rings and Black Knight's missions, Secret Rings missions are too long and overstay their welcome, while here in Sonic and the Black Knight, they are pretty short and forgettable. The boss battles are decent, I guess. The dream battle against the Sonic character was fun at first, but figuring out the pattern makes the battle too easy. All you have to do is shield during the combo and attack while vulnerable, and that's pretty much it. The second battle against the Black Knight can be pretty cheap, especially with the motion control quick time event. It can be very unresponsive at times, and it caused me to use the battle numerous times. The music is great, at least. They reuse and remix some of them from past Sonic games, and the original music is great as well. The visuals are much better than Secret Rings, with better presentation and cutscene. Seriously, the opening cutscene looks so amazing for Nintendo Wii game. I wonder how they were able to pull it off. Before I go to the final boss and story, I just want to say that this is probably one of the weirdest Sonic games I ever played, and I know that's saying a lot since Shadow the Hedgehog exists, but hear me out. The story goes back and forth from being too comedic and dramatic. There's, the talking sword. Even though I like the conversations between Excalibur and Sonic, talking objects just seems like something that belongs in a Banjo-Kazooie game rather than a Sonic game. There's not having rings and bounce pads, but items that does act like them, like the fairies are usually rings and the bounce pads are usually mushrooms. I know they try to fit with the setting, but I feel like that is an unnecessary change if you ask me. And it's also After defeating the Black Knight, Sonic learns that he was just an illusion. Sonic returned to Marina, revealing that King Arthur was an illusion made by her grandfather Merlin. Then a heel turn. Marina turns evil and wants to take over the world to prevent all living things from dying, which doesn't sound pretty evil now that I'm saying it out loud, but pretty much she thinks life is meaningless if everybody has an end. Sonic escapes with his friends and vows to put a stop to Marina's plan. You play 4 levels before the final battle and have access to Shadow, Knuckle, and Blaze. Shadow plays similar to Sonic. His movements is easier to control, but his attacks are slightly delayed, and plus he has his Chaos Control powers, but it's mostly cosmetic to Sonic's similar ability. Knuckles stops and prays when he's attacked, and has his traditional glide, so it makes it easier to avoid enemies. And Blaze is fun in my opinion, but it does take some time to get used to. Her attacks feels a little bit stiff, but they're very effective and she can climb up walls a lot easier than the others. The last stage involves a dragon, which sounds interesting, but I had one problem with the fight, and that's where you get to the dragon and you fall to the ground very easily. The ground is programmed to break when Sonic reaches a certain point, but Sonic can fall through the ground before it even breaks. I died a few times doing that. Again, not a game breaker, but it can be pretty annoying. Just like in Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic has a different transformation. Excalibur Sonic. It's okay, I guess. When I first played this, I was expecting, since this is part of the storybook series, that the Secret Rings would be back and Dark Spine Sonic would be the final transformation again. But seeing this seems a bit like a fanfiction than anything else, if I'm being honest. Now, the actual final battle itself is actually pretty easy. Just dodge the attacks and reflect the orbs right back. It's kind of similar to the final boss in Secret Rings, but a lot less motion controls. After saving the day and restoring my unit back to normal, it's revealed that Sonic, and want to sit down for this one, that Sonic the Hedgehog is actually King Arthur. First time seeing that, I just wanted to turn off the game because, that was pretty stupid even for a game like this. Uh, I was willing to go through all the crazy stuff, and I was willing to finish the game. Well, maybe not real. Really, it's not really an accurate word. It's more like I might as well just finish it because I got this far. But I don't know that just confused me. But the end does explain it that Sonic was just telling a story as an excuse for missing his date with Amy Rose. And that's pretty much the end of the game, or at least the end of the main story. There are other missions you can play, so there is some replay value. But on to the final thoughts. Sonic and the Black Knight overall is a mediocre game. I never got frustrated with the game, but I didn't have fun with it either. Technically speaking, it is a better game than Secret Rings, but I found Secret Rings to be a more enjoyable experience despite its problems. Sonic and the Black Knight is definitely the definition of mediocre and forgettable. It's not as bad as Sonic 06 or Sonic Boom Master Lyrics, but it does have problems that you can laugh at least. Nor is it a good game that has some potential like Sonic Heroes or Sonic Lost World. It's a game that you can never really get too angry at because it's not too hard or too cheap. Nor is it a good game that has some potential. It's just mediocre and forgettable in my opinion. But if you must try this game out, get it as cheap as you can because it is a short game. The story mode I finished within 2 hours, but there are extra missions afterwards. But still, I would not recommend getting this game at all. The critic wasn't very forgiving to this game. It averaged a 54 on Metacritic, and this is the time where critics were getting very strict on Sonic games, very critical. And even though I do somewhat disagree with some of the reviews, I don't really disagree with the whole score overall. I remember fans back then defending this game because if it ain't bad as 06, then I guess this means Sega's getting better at making their games, which I guess technically true, but still on its own merit, Sonic and the Black Knight is a mediocre game at best, at least in my opinion. But now it seems like the fanbase has forgotten this game. I guess you gotta wait till 2019, which is the 10-year anniversary of this game, when people are gonna start talking about it again. There are videos out there, but not many of them talk about this game in regular conversations. Its total sales is 1.1 million. That doesn't sound too bad, but the sales were very low at first, which explains why there isn't another installment of the storybook series. Do I want to see another installment of Sonic storybook series? That's kind of a yes or no. Yes, and I want to see what other crazy ideas Sega comes up with this game, but no, I don't want to see the outcome. Anyways, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. My next retrospective series will be on Chronoa 1 and 2, so stay tuned for that video. And of course, there is a retrospective video on Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Also stay tuned for that one. And be sure to subscribe for more retrospective videos, as well as versus videos and let's play videos. This is me, Bobbert 33, and I catch you guys later.